Welcome back to the Timeless Watch channel, guys. This week it is the Seiko Alpinist. Some of you guys guessed right. I was asking you guys to guess which watch it was going to be, and some of you said Sea Dweller. Like, I'm going to do the Sea Dweller here. I'm right here in the Alps, the perfect spot to do a review of this watch. The Seiko Alpinist was released in 1961 originally for the Yamaha Toko, the Japanese mountain men. Now, they released a couple of different types in 61 to 65. The Champion 850, I think, came after in 63, 64. Then it disappeared off the radar completely and didn't show its face again for another 30 years, believe it or not. 1995 was when they re-released the Alpinist with several different iterations. There are lots of different ones. You can go and check them all out. Ones with the red writing, the Alpinist in red and all of that, the cream dial, the black dial, etc., etc. But the most famous ones these days are the SARB editions that came out in 2006. So there's the SARB013, 015, and this one, the 017. Very, very famous because of its unique green, deep green sunburst dial. Quite a beautiful watch, and even more popular now that they've actually discontinued the watch. They're not selling it anymore, so it's running out of stock everywhere. It's quite hard to find. Anyway, I'm right above a town called Cortina d'Ampezzo, which is right down there. I think you can see some of it. Pretty soon they're going to put on the lights. It's going to be really pretty. Cortina is a kind of a wealthy town. It's a ski town, you know, a winter sports town. It kind of put itself on the map back in 1956 when it was host to the Winter Olympics. It was supposed to be originally in 1944, but things got postponed, of course, because of World War II. So they did it in 56, and ever since then, it's been a hot spot for avid winter sports fanatics and families who want to come skiing and so on. It doesn't quite have the architecture you'll see of all the, you know, the other Italian towns that I brought you guys to, but it is really pretty nonetheless, and it has some beautiful restaurants and hotels and all these boutiques, high fashion boutiques and stuff, expensive stuff. It even has, believe it or not, a Rolex authorized dealer. Can you believe it? We're here in the middle of nowhere. It's at like 1,200 meters, about 4,000 feet elevation, and tucked into the middle of the Alps, and they have a Rolex authorized dealer, something a lot of bigger cities way back towards civilization there don't even get to boast that they have. Now I'm up at the very top of the world. It feels like I'm up at 8,000 feet. I took an extremely scary cable car up here that was kind of shaking around and stuff like that. All sorts of thoughts go through your head. It's not cool, but when you get to the top, it's well worth it. It's looking down kind of at the world here. It's pretty amazing. So let's take a look at Cortina. Let's take a look at the environment around here, and of course let's take a really good look at the Seiko Alpinist SARB017. Here we go. So this is a really, really rich town. As the rich and famous come here all the time. They spend a lot of money, a lot of fur coats walking around, a lot of chihuahuas and jackets and stuff like that, you know. And of course, I'm at a wine bar in the middle of the mountains. It's just nuts. If you want to sit back and relax and let a cable car take you up into paradise in the sky, Cortina is the place to come, guys. I just passed by a jewelry store window that just took my breath away. They had a large watch box with some of the most insane pieces, vintage Daytonas, vintage Submariner. I saw Proplof. I saw the trilogy from Omega, the Railmaster, Speedmaster, Seamaster from the 50s, the reissue. Very, very highly collectible little set there. And a bunch of Patek, old vintage Patek and stuff. Now surrounding the town is of course this kind of set of Dolomites, these alpine peaks. They're kind of very distinctive looking, the Dolomites, because they look bare. You have a kind of a snowy mountain and then you have a wall of limestone just peeking out straight into the sky. Very, very distinctive look off the Dolomites. There are cable cars that leave from the little town of Cortina in the middle, and they all spread out to the various different peaks all the way around. There's about 70 ski slopes in total, so you can take your pick. There's some fantastic spots. I mean, you wind up in the sky. Some of these cable cars are pretty scary to go up in because it's just a line hanging over a dead drop like 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet. So you wind up on the top of the world, and then you have the ski lifts that'll bring you up even farther, and you can ski down these incredible slopes literally on the top of the world. Out of all things, guys, Cortina, this area is full of money. There's a lot of really rich folks going around here. Ever since the Olympics of '56, the world's attention was focused on the place, and it drew the attention of the rich and famous. People like Frank Sinatra and Brigitte Bardot and so on would come here to spend a little winter time, go skiing and so on, and live the high life down in the town just down below us there, go to the fancy restaurants, etc., etc. There's money going through this place, you know. As you can probably tell, I'm in a wine bar on top of a mountain. What are you going to do? You know, you get to a certain age that these things, this is the stuff you want, you know. When I was in my 20s, I didn't mind backpacking and staying in hostels and meeting strangers from around the world and buying a sandwich and cutting half of it and wrapping up half of it for the next day. Save money, and hitchhiking, and, you know, getting on a train and hiding in the toilet because the inspector would come by and I haven't paid for the ticket. You know, we've all done those years. Then you reach a certain point and you're like, you know what, I don't mind that finer life. I made a little money. I don't need to backpack. I don't need to stay in a cheap hotel or in a hostel or anything. We were playing a gig one time down in the East Village in New York in a place called Chennai, which was eventually moved to Brooklyn afterwards, and then it actually closed down after it moved to Williamsburg, Brooklyn. But for a while it was in the East Village, Lower East Side more specifically, and Edward Norton was there, the famous actor. There he was standing in the crowd digging our set. I'm like, that's kind of cool, real New York moment. So afterwards he's out front chatting with his mates, big tall guys. So I'm 6 foot, he must be 6'1", 6'2". And I said I'm a big fan and all that, you know, stupid moment. He was cool, was gracious about it. But our drummer said to him, as he was dragging out some equipment, he said, Ed, you want to give us a hand? You know, this is heavy, you want to give me a hand? And Edward Norton replied, sorry man, my roadie days are over. We all go through those days and we put our work in, and then eventually we hopefully reach a certain level of success that we can say, all right, now I can sit back and let somebody else carry the equipment out of the venue in the middle of the night in the cold. Funny story, just came to mind. So the Alpinist wound up being kind of a tool watch and a dress watch at the same time. It has kind of classic, beautiful looks. The green on the dial kind of reminds me of like a poker table or one of those snooker tables. Deep green, which kind of makes you think about, you know, gambling, luxury situations and so on. Of course, with the brown leather strap, that kind of completes that, doesn't it? And then you have the, of course, the gold indices, and they are all real gold, plated at least, indices in hands. So it's a bit of a fancy watch, but it's a tool watch. So it's, again, like many watches, it has multiple arenas that it can star in, you know. I feel like Seiko kind of hit a really sweet spot with this watch. I can't think of many other watches that kind of double as a sports tool watch for adventurous, and you can wear to a wedding or with a suit. I mean, can you think of any other watches that could do that? I can't. But it remains one of those elusive watches, one of those kind of fantastical watches that has multiple places in the world. So one of the coolest things about the Seiko Alpinist is, of course, this compass that's on the inside of the rehaut here around the dial. A lot of people, even people who own the Alpinist, don't even know how to use the compass. So let me show you exactly what you do. It's called the Boy Scout trick. Basically, you want to locate where the sun is. So right now, it's over there. You want to draw a line down to the horizon as if the sun is right there. And that line, you want to draw to yourself, right over to the watch. Hold the watch flat and take the hour hand and point it exactly at where the sun is, in that direction. You divide the distance between the hour hand, which as you can see is just past 2, and 12 noon, and the exact middle spot between the two will be south. And what you do is you take this crown here at the 4 o'clock position and you move south to that exact position. Now you know where north, east and west is too. And you have an accurate measure. So you could do this with any watch actually. It's called the Boy Scout trick, and you can just get the hour hand and point it at the sun and divide it between 12. But it's much more accurate on the Alpinist. During daylight savings time between March and November, of course, you have to add an hour on here. So it would be between the hour hand, wherever it comes up at the sun, and 1 p.m. rather than 12 noon. And of course, for all my friends in down under in Australia or in South America, you do the opposite process. So you point 12 at the sun and divide the distance between 12 and the hour hand, and then you have north instead of south. So it's the exact opposite process. Anyway, it's a really cool thing, and it means it just makes things more accurate for map reading and so on. That's why the Alpinist is the true adventurous watch in the Alps. So just over 39 millimeters in diameter, 46 from here to here, from lug to lug,
12 millimeters thick, and it has a 20 millimeter lug to lug width for changing straps or bracelets. The head, of course, is a mix between brushed and polished surfaces. So you have these lovely brushed top lugs here, counterpointed by this almost mirror shine, mirror finish, high gloss bezel. One thing I really like is how the watch has the crown guards kind of in the design of the head. They're not extra pieces attached to the head, but they're just part of the head curvature there, protecting the screw down crown. Very nice stuff. On the back, we have a large screw down case back, almost the diameter of the entire watch head, with of course the beautiful Alpinist logo there with the mountain shapes and all of the information on the watch. Nothing too elaborate, but basically all you need on the back of a watch. No exhibition back, of course, and probably for the best, because the 6R15, although it is quite a durable and dependable movement, it isn't exactly the prettiest one to look at. It beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour, a lot less than your regular 28,000 that you'll get in many watches of this caliber. But because of that, it means that it's a much more robust watch. It's going to last longer, and it does have a 50-hour power reserve. The power reserve on high beat watches tends to be lower unless you're paying big bucks for the really high luxury brands. It is a lush and deep sunburst green that reminds me of something like a poker table in a casino, or a snooker table, or something like that. And then of course it's counterpointed with these beautiful gold or gilt indices and hands. Very nice combo indeed. It has the cathedral hand design. If you take a closer look at those, you can see why they're referred to as such. It kind of has a Gothic cathedral look, and it has of course a mixture of numerals and arrows as the indices. One interesting thing I find about this watch is that it does only have even numbers in numerals, so 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And I wonder, is that Seiko's response to the other very famous Alpine adventurous watch, of course the Rolex Explorer 1, the 214270, which famously has the very large 3, 6, and 9. The Seiko logo is also in gold-plated steel or gilt, which I think is a very nice touch because it catches the light alongside the 10 and 2 there. Now, being 39 millimeters across, it does wear quite compact, just like its competitor, the Explorer. But these lugs, as you can see, tapered down quite dramatically. If they were a tad straighter, or even straight lugs completely, the watch would wear as a much larger watch. But because of this dramatic taper, once they leave the head, it makes the watch more compact, and it reduces the overall wearing size of the watch. However, in another way, it is quite large, and that is the height of the watch itself. It's 12 millimeters in height, but it really feels like 12 millimeters or even more. It sits quite high and stately off the wrist. Because of this wide case back here, it's going to sit on the knuckles and bones of your wrist rather than fitting in the pit in between, as many other famous watches do. So what are the cons of this watch? Well, there are a few valid criticisms. The first one that comes to mind is the strap. It just isn't as high quality as the rest of the watch, and in fact what most people do when they purchase this watch is they immediately remove the strap and replace it with either an oyster bracelet, or they find a higher quality version of this kind of leather strap. The next thing is the crystal. Although it is real sapphire crystal and it is dead flat, there is one slight problem. They haven't applied any anti-reflective coating to either side of the crystal, which means it reflects all bright light around you. And if you've ever spent any time high up in the mountains, you'll know that during the day there is nothing but strong sunlight everywhere, especially if there's snow around you. So plenty of things to reflect off the surface, and plenty of things to make it that more difficult to read the time on the watch. The final criticism is that this 4 o'clock crown here that adjusts the compass on the around the chapter ring moves a little bit too easy. It's quite nice when you want to make the adjustment, but I find that it tends to scrape off your skin on your wrist a little bit and offsets itself by itself. Quite often I'll look down and see that the compass has kind of moved out of whack by a couple of degrees just by basically brushing off my wrist. But apart from those issues, this remains an extremely beautiful and useful watch. Somehow with this watch, Seiko have managed to do something that no one else has managed to do so well, and that is to give you a watch that sits neatly on the border between sports watch and dress watch. It's quite a fascinating thing, and I think because of that, the Seiko SARB017 remains one of those watches that all collectors feel they need to have in their collection.
Well, that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed that episode. I'm freezing cold now, the sun has gone over the mountain. Thanks to my daughter Lydia for helping me film this one. She's really good at this kind of thing. She's a natural, what can you say? Watch out, she's probably going to start a channel very soon. And now to finish, let's take a good look at this beautiful area of the Ampezzo Valley, surrounded in Dolomite peaks, and the little town of Cortina d'Ampezzo in the middle, and of course at the Seiko SARB017. Cheers guys, see you in the next one.
Welcome back to the Timeless Watch channel, guys. This week it's the Seiko Alpinist and I'm in the Alps. What I love about this watch is the green dial, the vintage look, the cathedral hands, the gold. It makes it such
I was trying to get some tea over there. They don't have any tea, unfortunately. Was coffee all right?
Yeah, coffee
What are
is
you
grand.
doing here?
No, nothing. No, coffee is grand.
Are you filming?
No.
You're filming?
No.
You're taking a, hey, get out of my channel, you. It's my channel.